Well, yes, I have to consent to this. Yes, consent. Got to give consent everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, I've been working on, keep working on Harvest Moon, just playing it, which is really fun. I really, really enjoy that.
Good.
But as usual, I got detoured into a couple of things. Well, I was in the Neil Young frame of mind.
Okay.
So, pulled out Broken Arrow,
Oh,
uh, and which is again that's a really fun challenge.
sure.
Then pulled out Unknown Legend, which I've never done actually. I mean, the song
Yeah.
memorable. So been working on Unknown Legend, and uh, which I'll go through. But then I got distracted again. Uh,
Okay.
Distracted again, and this is a new one. So this is a YouTube, is continually telling me there are things that they think I'm going to want to watch,
Right.
and this one turned out to be good. So this is a cover of "I'm a Believer," and which I think of as sort of a Monkees pop song,
Sure.
but it's and I later found out that it had something to do with that movie Shrek. I didn't know that, but
Oh.
yeah, when I pulled up the the lyrics, there's a little Shrek tag in the corner.
Ah. Because another song that really gained a lot of popularity because of Shrek was Hallelujah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know that.
That was pretty obscure until it
Yeah,
got used there. Yeah.
um, but in I'm a Believer, so the cover that I pull up is to a couple who I'd never heard of,
Okay.
the Running Mates. So the Running Mates were Berkeley School of Music classmates. They
Okay.
married, and um, they do a down tempo, sort of down tempo, if you will, version of "I'm a Believer,"
Okay.
and so I mean, it's really nice. And so what I tried to do was figure out the whole song, and listen. I listened to them do it, and you can see him do it. He's capoed up, and all. But I tried to just figure it all out, and I thought I figured it out from
Okay.
it's in G and all. But then I went back after I figured it out, and got what I thought were the chords and looked to see what he was actually playing, and it was, I'll call it a little bit different.
Okay.
A little bit different because I couldn't understand. I didn't. He was playing G's and C's, and we've done this chord
Yeah.
so much before.
Yeah.
So G's and C's, and that's and then there's one part of it that I can't figure out at all
Okay.
in the chorus. But anyway, um, that's what I've been working on after going through the melody,
Yeah.
trying to figure this out.
So let me ask you a couple questions. Um, do I have a lesson on Unknown Legend at Totally Guitars?
You do,
Okay, good.
you do, you do, and I've been working and I've worked through that. Yeah,
Okay,
you
yeah, good. Okay, and then did you listen to Neil Diamond's version of this at all? Of I'm a Believer.
no.
Okay, that would be worth checking out too, just to hear how he intended for it to go. I assume you know that he wrote this.
Did he write this? I
I
don't
think
know.
so. I thought so.
Oh yeah, he did. Yeah, it's right here. It's at the bottom. Yep, yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And his version, like a lot of his early songs, like "Brother Loves Traveling Salvation Shore," "Sweet Carol," a lot of them. Oh, what's the one I'm thinking of? "Solitary Man." Are you can really clearly hear him strumming the guitar and singing. It's like in his early days, it was the acoustic guitar was the main thing that was in all of his songs.
Okay.
Um, but now the production that the Monkees guys put on this was fabulous. I mean, they made this into a great bubblegummy pop tune that is infectious.
Right.
Okay, so the two chords you just played, the G. Tell me again, what's the difference between this G and the normal G?
Well, then we add this D.
Right, which is
So,
what part of the chord?
um, what part of the chord?
Or does that change the chord at all? Does that make the G something other than just G major?
No, because there's already a D in it.
Right, because so D is the fifth of our G chord,
Right,
right?
right.
And but what this does, and otherwise what we have on that string is what note?
Otherwise, we would have a B.
So when you play G with the B open, um, this third, the B that we're hearing up there high, is very prominent, and it makes it really sounds like a solid major chord. When you eliminate that B, even though you have another B on the fifth string, that note's not coming out probably very clearly. Like there's a very good chance that it's a little muffled and dead. Matter of fact, a lot of times when people play this chord as a G, they just kill that string automatically and don't even have a finger on it. They would play it just like this and make sure that this finger is killing it, you know. And then now we don't have a third at all in this chord. But even if we play it with all four notes and that B is kind of coming out, we've got a little more hollow kind of sound up here. These high notes, boy. Um, it's like what the Eagles play at the beginning of "Take It Easy." They start on this G, and it's noticeably not this solid G major. It's this G with the D in it. So anyway, so a lot of times just to differentiate this from the other one, sometimes I'd almost call this a power chord, just like a G5, which is the designation we use when we're talking about a chord that doesn't have a third.
Right.
Okay, but it's really just a different voicing of G, because we really do have the B still kind of in the bass, but we don't hear that B really clearly in the chord. Now, when you change those two bass notes to C, now what do we have?
So we have replaced well, actually, no, we just have, we've added this D here
Right.
to the chord, and we substituted that for the redundant C on the B string.
Okay.
Um, and so the C sus2.
Almost. What's an important element of sus?
Oh, we have to take out the third.
Right. And do we have a third here or not?
Um, yeah, we do.
Right. Right. Okay. Now we have eliminated one of the thirds, because on the first string, what have you got on the first string here?
Well, now we have a G on the first string.
And so does that affect the name of this chord at all?
Um, let's see. So instead of probably does. Yeah, because we're adding that in. Oh no, we have a G already. No, we have a G here.
Right. Yeah. So the high G, if you play a C chord, a regular C chord, and add a high G to it, all you've done is change the voicing. It's still just C major.
Yeah, still C major.
Okay?
Yeah.
But the D we have to account for.
Yeah, the D we have to account for.
So what's our other approach to this if it's not sus?
Uh, C2.
Well, usually if it's not sus, we don't usually call this note 2. We go into the next octave. So what is 2 the second time around?
9. C9.
Now you're getting close. Then the catch here is what?
It's C major 9.
No, you're close. In order for it to be 9, we have to have 5 notes. We have to have 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9.
Okay.
And so what we don't have here is any kind of 7.
Okay.
So that's when we just call it add. This is add 9.
Okay. C add 9.
Right. And so the term add is only used for numbers bigger than 7,
Yeah.
which would be 9, 11, and 13,
Okay.
when there is no seventh. So in all of those other chords, if I call something C9 or C11 or C13, you got to have the seventh in it.
Okay.
But if we just call it add 11 or add 9, it's 4 notes. It's the 1, 3, 5 and just that high number and no seventh.
So the label is literal. Add nine is the only thing you do.
Right, right. And you write out ADD 9. You write C add 9. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So
Okay.
anyway, so that's the story on that chord. Okay, so how did the rest of the song go then? Or what do you?
Well, the song, the strumming, um, I think I can, I think I got the song until all the way till till I get to the chorus part, and then there's something that I can't hear. Uh,
Okay.
so I think what the song is it starts. That's the way it's. Here it gets milky. I'm not sure about the A minor.
Okay. Having not listened to their version, A minor is not the chord that should happen there anyway.
Okay.
But there is something unusual about um, there's something definitely unusual about this chord. Okay, so up until now it's basically been 1, 4, and 5, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and you're hearing, and I'm not sure. I'll listen to their version in just a second. So her face, now I'm a believer. It's probably just the G and the C back and forth there, 2 beats each.
Yeah.
On a trace, down in my mind, I'm in love, I'm a believer. Now we need to find those notes. Something like that, right?
Yeah.
Um, but when you're listening, yeah, you know what? I better listen to their version because the as we've talked about a little bit before, when we're trying to figure stuff out, um, it's really important to listen to the bass.
Right.
And they were called the yeah.
I thought love was only true in fairy tales, meant for someone else but not for me. Love was out to get me, that's the way it seemed. Disappointment haunted all my dreams, and then I saw her face. Now I'm a believer, and not a trace of doubt in my mind. I'm in love, ooh, I'm a believer. I couldn't leave her if I tried.
Yeah. Good. They did what I thought, which is right. Now they've done something else a little bit different here too. Um, so he's probably at like about 5 or something, right? Oh, it sounds like he's at 4. But let me listen, because he did not go from G to C in those first couple of chords.
I thought love was only true in fairy tales, meant for someone else but not for me. Love was out to get me, that's the way it seemed. Disappointment haunted all my dreams. Then I saw her face, now I'm a believer. Not a trace, doubt in my mind. I'm in love, and I'm a believer. I couldn't leave her if I tried.
Okay. So he's in E, and pretty much, but an interesting thing that both of them did that is, if we're back in G. Okay, so there's the melody notes that you'd be picking out there on that. I thought love was only true in fairy tales, right? And so what are those notes? What's the first note you would start singing on?
G, I think.
Good. And then when it changes, when it goes to the second chord, what's the next melody note? I thought love was own. Right. Right. So the two notes that were on the chord change, on the not G chord, what were they?
C.
That was the second one. What was the first one?
O.
Right.
Oh, it's an A.
It's A, right, okay. So right when that chord change happens, you're singing an A. I thought love was own. That clashes a little bit, doesn't fit with the C chord very well. But when it goes to the C, only true, that works. Because that's in this chord, right? But what would be all the chords in the key? If we're looking for a chord that has the note, actually, if we're looking for a chord that has maybe an A and a C in it.
A minor.
Okay, yeah. So let's see how that sounds. I thought love was only true in fairy tale. Okay, it works, but it's clearly not that.
Yeah,
Right?
no, I tried that before. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And okay, so in A minor, A is obviously the root of the chord.
Yep.
So when we're looking for how could we figure out the other chords in the key that would include an A?
Well, just going through them. The B, or no, not B. B minor would have an A in it. No, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't. It's covered up there.
What we need to do is take kind of a mathematical approach here, in that we just dealt with the chord that had A as the root.
Right.
What would have to be the root for A to be the next part of the chord? Which would be the third.
G.
Not quite. Because A would be what number in G?
It would be 2.
Right.
So it would be 3 of F.
Right. And what key are we in?
Well, we're in G.
So what kind of F chord do we have? So it'd be an F sharp chord in the first place, right?
F
And
sharp.
then what type of chord? Because it's chord number.
Diminished. F sharp diminished.
Right. So note 2. Now let's go back even a little more algebra here. Note 2 in every key will be the root of chord 2.
Right.
It'll be the third of chord 7.
Right. Okay.
Okay, and we're going to throw that out temporarily, figuring that we're not going to use a diminished chord here.
Okay.
But then we want to figure out it's going to be the fifth of, we have to continue our path backwards here
Yeah.
from 7 down to what chord number would include 2 as the 5th. Yeah. We're down to chord 5 now,
Yeah.
right? And so, and if we wanted to take it even further, what chord would have it? Where am I going here? Oh no, yeah. We could go further and try to figure out what chord might even have the A in it as the 7th. That would take us down 2 more slots down to chord number 3.
Yeah.
Okay, but we're not quite going there yet.
Okay.
But we know that the A is in the D chord and the A minor chord. That's so there's a good chance that the chord that happens here is one of those. Particularly, do either of those? Oh, like A minor has C in it as well.
Yep.
But we also didn't. We heard A minor. It didn't sound like there's like that's not happening.
Right.
What about a D chord that had a C in it as well? What would that be?
A D chord that had a C in it as well, that would be D7.
Right. So if you play D7, you've got the A and the C right there. Yeah. And now, if we hear that, I thought love was only true in fairy tales. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. So what the guy in the Running Mates was doing was he was going to D there, just a regular D chord, not even D7, but not to that C, not to the C with the added ninth. And then in Neil Diamond's version, he was in the key of E, and so the chord change there was going to chord 5, not to chord 4.
Okay.
And so in Neil's version, he was going from E to what? What would be 5 in E?
C.
Not quite.
O, E. B.
B. Yeah. And B is one of those chords that everybody, you always think, oh shoot, I hate playing a B chord, But in the key of E, we have the bonus that B is chord 5,
Right.
which means it can be a 7th chord.
Right.
So in the key of E, you see B7s all the time, and that's what Neil Diamond's version was doing here, was going from E to B7 there.
Yeah.
And then the other changes were going to 4, which would be A. So his version was this. Now we can start hearing 4. Back to B7. And now we've got the quick 1 to 4 changes, like you had the G to C. Then I saw her face. Now I'm a believer. Not a trace. Doubt in my mind. I'm in love. I'm a believer. Oh, I'm a believer. I couldn't. Now we're at the mystery chord that is not one of the chords in the key. And then it lands on 5. If I try. So that's where you were messing with A minor there.
Right.
Okay. And let me think about that. The chord that happens there has the same 2 notes in it, the A and the C. So we're done with the key of E. We're back in the key of G. I'll bring you back to the key that your brains have been in here, right? And so now we're looking for another chord that has A and C in it, like we found D7 did.
Yeah.
And A minor did.
Yeah.
Right? And then we also found that the F sharp diminished, the 3 notes in the F sharp diminished would be F sharp, A, and C. A and C would be the 3rd and the 5th of that.
Right.
And, if you played a D7 chord, it's really common to play that chord with like F sharp in the bass, either wrap your thumb around or something like that. And you can see now we're hearing this F sharp and the A and the C. If you only play those three notes, F sharp, A, and C, and don't play the D in this chord,
Yeah.
that's our F sharp diminished chord.
Okay.
And the reason we don't see this chord very often used by itself is because those three notes, F sharp, A, and C, are all in a D7 chord. D7 is D7, D, F sharp, A, C.
Right.
So the top three notes of every seventh chord, meaning if you take the root out of a seventh chord, you're left with a diminished chord. What had been the third of that D7 chord is the root of our chord number 7 in the key, the diminished chord.
Okay.
So, and I know this is kind of fuzzy, but it's this is kind of an explanation for why we don't see that seventh chord very often. Because chord number 7, sorry, why we don't see the diminished chord number 7 very often. It's because those three notes are included in the dominant seventh chord that we play on step 5.
Okay.
And so it has the dissonance that you get with a diminished chord, plus the root of the plus note 5 in the scale, which is called the dominant note. It's step 5 is called the dominant. Okay, so okay. Now, having said all that, here's what the bass does on that last chord, right? And I was believer, I couldn't. I want to turn this away so you can't see what I'm doing. I'm a believer, I couldn't leave her if I tried. Now here's my G chord. Now what'd you hear the bass do right there?
We went to, well, it's on the 5th string.
Listen again. Here's my G chord, and here's the bass note of the next chord. Where did that sound like it was in relation to the G?
Oh, it's lower.
Right. Find that note.
It's okay.
It's F.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they used a chord outside the key by using a note out of the scale. In other words, it's an F chord that they played there. And the other two notes in an F chord are what?
A and C.
A and C, right. So F sharp AC is F sharp diminished.
Right.
But F natural and A and C is just F major.
Right.
Okay? And so that's what's going on here. Now this is a really common thing in songwriters in their toolkit of using a chord. There are two really common chords that get used outside the key. Two other major chords that are used really commonly in chord progressions. And if you think about the chords G and C, chords 1 and 4,
Yeah.
are in the key of they're in the key of G. In the key of G, they're 1 and 4. That's okay.
Right.
But they're also in, and then D is like the third part of that team in the key of G.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But G and C are also in another key. What other key than G has both of those chords?
C.
Right. So any two chords that are 1 and 4 in this key are 5 and 1 in the other key.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay? So in C, G is 5.
Right.
So what's the third chord in C that isn't in G?
E.
Not quite. No, I don't mean chord 3, the third major chord.
Oh, the third major chord in C.
Yeah.
F.
Right. So you see C and G together all the time, and if it's in the key of C, you see F with it. And if it's in the key of G, you see D with it.
Right. Okay.
Okay? So that's kind of where this chord is. It's borrowed from the key of C and used to make it sound like something's wrong here. You know, something like, or something, but then it immediately lands back on D. So this is just like a little detour out of the key temporarily, but it's really temporary. It's 2 beats,
Yep.
you know, and then it lands back on 5, ready to be turned around and start all over.
Okay.
So sometimes when we talk about numbering chords in a key, you know, if using Roman numerals to identify the chords, right? 1, 4, and 5, I would always write with capitals, you know, with like beams on them, and 2, 3, and 6 with small letters and stuff like that. And a good way to identify this chord is the note that it's based on is not note 7, because note 7 is F sharp.
Mhm.
So it's a flat 7. The note F would be considered a flatted 7 in the key of G.
Right.
So sometimes this chord is written out as a flat sign and then a large Roman numeral 7.
Okay.
And that would identify this chord that's a whole step below chord 1.
Yeah.
But it's really borrowed from the key of chord 4 of C.
Okay.
So like I said a few minutes ago, there are 2 really common satellite major chords that get used with the 3 primary ones sometimes, and this is one of them. The chord number flat 7, which is an F chord in the key of G.
Okay.
Okay. The other one is the chord that is from the other pair of chords we have in this key are G and D.
Uh-huh.
They're 1 and 5.
Right.
Well, those 2 chords are also then in the key of D if we turn them around. D is 1, and that makes G 4.
Right.
And the other major chord in the key of D, then, besides D and G, is what?
A.
That's the other chord we're likely to see used in a song, is the chord from the key, is the 3rd major chord from the key of D, which is an A chord.
Okay.
Now, when we use that, and we've talked about this a little bit, then I'll stop talking and we can play some more. But but when we use that, A is in there acting as a secondary dominant chord, because it's in there acting as 5 of D.
Okay.
So it's 5 of 5. So we have a little bit more official explanation of that in terms of numbering it. We call it 5 of 5.
Yeah.
Whereas the other one, technically the other one could be 4 of 4 too, but I don't want to throw too many other numbers at you.
Okay. Well, you showed me an example of the A. I have to go. I gotta go.
No problem. Yeah.
The other major event of the week was inheriting um, from the grandkids who were here for 4 days.
Oh.
Massive head cold,
Oh. No.
which I now thought I was over, but
Yeah. Lingering, huh?
came in there. So, an example of A used the same way that the F was just used.
Yeah. So it doesn't happen in this song, right? But if I'm just going to make up a song that does something like this. Like I could have, so in the key of G, I could put this country song together. Now what I did right there was in the first line. I mean, see, that sounds like totally acceptable, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
And particularly for the A, in order to sound even more like a secondary, a dominant chord, I went to A7 rather than just A. So I used A7 because it's acting as chord 5 in D to get me to D. So again, what I did in the first line of that song was G to C and back to G. But now I want to get to D, so I use the A in the second measure. Now my next part might be just had there was a 16 measure phrase that in the first line went 1-4-1-1. So
Yeah.
then in the second line I went 1, and then I used 5 of 5. I used the A7 in the next measure, and that took me to D or D7 for that. Then for the third line, what I kind of wanted to do was start somewhere else. So I started on 4 to like break this up. So that was 4-4-1-1.
Okay.
Then I'm ready to wrap this up, so I did the A7 to D7 again to bring me home to G. So in that case, I used the A7 twice as a secondary dominant, to pull me to D. And the first time that line came to rest on D. So the cadence is the word we use for that, like a resting point in a song or a stopping point. And so at the end of 8 measures, I was hanging on D, and I got there from A7.
Yeah.
Then the next 4 measures, I hung out on 4 and 1, C's and G's. But then for the last line, I used the secondary dominant again to get me to G in the second to last measure. I want 2 measures of G at the end to kind of balance my 2 measures of D at the midpoint.
Yeah.
You following that a little bit?
Yeah, I am. But it makes me wonder though, because you're writing the song here.
Right.
If you're writing the song, were you also doing? Did you have some melody in mind?
Not really. Not yet. And so if you want to write a song, first you just come up with a chord progression. Then you keep strumming through it and just try to hum something that seems like it fits. Don't even worry about words. Try to come up with a melody.
Yeah.
And so if I were to take this step further now, what was my progression? Okay. Da 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 da. Now, obviously that was just kind of improvised, and I could tweak it a little bit, but now I've kind of like got a starting point of some notes that seemed like they worked with what I was doing there, and I ended up phrasing it just this is just random, with like 2 measures worth of melody and then a break. Do, 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 do. Similar construction in the next line. Do, 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 do. So the phrasing of my melody kind of matched up in those 2 lines, but the melody was a little different, and now in the third line, the texture might be different. Do, 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 do. I filled up 2 sets of 2 measures there. And then my fourth line is going to be like the first line again. Do, 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 do. So that's how songwriters work. It's like you kind of come up with a chord progression that you like. And, the one I put together there, it wasn't like it wasn't like it was voodoo or anything. I knew what all those chords were going to sound like already when I chose to go to them, and that's why it was easy for me to then sing a melody over them because because I've done this a lot. Okay,
Right.
and then once you've gotten that much, then you can start worrying about words. Once you settle on the melody or something, you can think about, do I want to tell a story about my grandkids and the cold they gave me this week, or do I want to write a story about the fire that kept me home, or whatever. Because most songwriters start just putting in words as placeholders, like maybe this right here I need the word mesa or table or something like that, and then they start building stuff around it, and then the melody might change or the phrasing might change now as some lyrics come to you and you start thinking, I got too many words in there. I got to change what I'm doing one way or another. So it's anyhow, so you might experiment with this a little bit. Is just try to come up with a simple little song and a melody. Um, like right here when I just strum this G chord, I decided a comfortable note for me to sing is G. So that's where I started my melody, right? And I barely changed it. Ba ba da 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 da. Like right there, that was nothing but G's till the last note, because when it went to a C chord, I could stay on the note G.
Right.
Okay? But then at the very end, I just wanted something different. And when it came back to the G chord, I went from a G to a D. Da, da, da. So now my simple melody, da, 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 da. I could have made it more elaborate. Da, 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 da. A little more shape there to what I just did, right? So, I where oh my dental hygienist who takes ukulele lessons from me she was playing ukulele music in there today while she's cleaning my teeth, and we started talking a little bit about progressions, because I said all these songs you're listening to they're all the same progression. There was Hey Soul Sister by Train, and I'm Yours by Jason Mraz, and Over the Rainbow by Is Kamaka Viva Ole. Anyway, and so I said, you know what, you can play all those songs because you know all 4 chords in them. They're the same chord progression but completely different melodies. And so, you don't have to think about coming up with an unusual chord progression. Like what I just did here was pretty boilerplate almost, in terms of, those chords all went together pretty nicely. It was phrased all kind of nicely and stuff. But there are a lot of songs out there that do some really unusual things. G, B flat, C, D. Now the first time you hear that B flat, it's like, well, man, that doesn't sound right. Those 2 chords don't go together. But you do it enough, they do. Now you've heard this like 3 or 4 times, and you're saying, oh, that could be a good song. And I don't know if you know what song this is yet, but it's there. This is I can't say it's famous. It's a tune by Dan Hicks, called Moody Richard.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It goes like this. Moody Richard, he was always hanging around. Moody Richard, was the biggest square in town. And so you hear 8 of these before you hear anything else. They're doing this G to B flat to C, D, and then it does something really weird. He was an innocent bystander. So this uses chords that should not be related at all. They're not. That was a C minor to an E minor.
Yeah.
And in the key of G, C is 4, which is one of the major chords. So he's using a minor chord on 4,
Yeah.
and then going to the normal minor 6. But you can't even tell that that's the normal E minor, because that C minor just threw you so off of, that was weird, It's so that's a much more complex and creative progression than my little country song that I just put together here,
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, this sounds like a subject that could go on for years.
Yes.
But it makes me wonder initially, understanding what we just talked about, and what you just explained about progression, and then fill the melody in behind it, and then put it around some conceptual idea for a song that you have. Or
Yeah.
something. And I think about when things change dramatically, like how did Lennon and McCartney, stuff didn't seem like there was a background that worked into a lot of those songs. Well, early on, I guess there was, but
Even from day one, they pulled unusual chords out of their bag of tricks and made them work, and changed keys even in the middle of a song. Sometimes they would, and I Love Her. Is that the right key? Yeah. I give her all my love. Well, they go into a solo and they change keys. Ah. So in the vocal part of the song, it's E minor and B minor back and forth.
Yep.
A short guitar solo comes in a half step higher. They just change keys and jump to F minor and play the solo, and by the time you've heard the first two notes, you've forgotten about it. It's like you hear the first note and it's like, wow, that was kind of jarring. Oh, that's really cool. It's like, and so that they were doing that kind of stuff in the really early days. So, yeah.
Well, I'm going to continue to work on I'm a Believer. I'm going to try to.
Can you sing it in that key, like in the key of G? I thought love was only true and fair. Yeah. So all you got to do is use a D chord there for that second in that line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
D7.
It could be, the guy in that video was going to D, but I like D7 better. Love was only true and fairy tales. Yeah. Oh, you know what? Let's listen to the Monkees version real quick. See what key they did it in. Yeah, so they're in G, not capoed. So that couple, capoed it up the neck for the particularly for the vocal harmonies. The harmonies they were singing were really neat in there. It was sometimes she started off singing the melody, then later on he's doing the melody and she's singing harmony with it. I mean they really worked that out.
Yeah.
Nicely. Yeah.
I guess they learned that in music school.
I guess so. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the other thing I want to work on in there is just he was
Oh.
picking that out.
Yeah.
And
I thought love was more or less a
Okay. So what he's doing there is just kind of what I would call focused strumming, where he's kind of hitting individual strings. Never taking big strokes at that, but
Right.
keeping his hand moving just like he's strumming all the time. And, just kind of lightly hitting a couple strings in there. So the whole thing was really subdued in terms of, he wasn't strumming the snot out of there. And when he went to the D, he threw in a little hammer on there from the E to F sharp. So try this on the G, yeah. If you think about our normal like folk strumming pattern, without the up probably at the end, just down, down, up, down, but only hit one or two strings with every stroke, starting with a bass note. You got to have the bass note on beat one, and then something like this. Two ups in a row.
Hmm?
2 ups in a row. Remember in this strum, it's going to be an up. We're going to miss the down on beat 3. Right.
Okay. Oh, well, down, down, up, down.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
That's what we're going for here, right?
That's what we're going for.
Okay.
Yeah. I got upside down there. Yeah.
Hmm?
The first one was good. The second time you didn't keep moving. Try again. Yeah. No.
What?
Try again. Try again. You're getting crossed up on the second up sometimes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like that?
Yeah, so that would be really worth putting a lot of time into and feeling, just that you got the same motion as if we're strumming anything, but it's really delicate. It's just really just one or two strings at a time. Now, when you tried to do the hammer on there, that did mess up your right hand a little bit. It was trying to just right now put just one too many things together. Like, okay, so if we try to do that there, I would put that on the first up, 1, 2, and 3. Now that means we're hearing something on 3 that we're not hitting. We're hammering on to beat 3, which is the missing stroke down here. And what that made your right hand do was freeze for a second, and then you got upside down instead of keeping this moving through that hammer on the stroke.
I got it. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Oop. No. Okay, I'm hitting that on the up of 2,
Right.
right?
Right.
So 1, 2, 1, 2. That's the 3.
Right. And now the next stroke has to be up again. That's what happened. You froze up here, and now you're going to be upside down.
Right.
So while you're doing that hammer on here, this hand has to continue its fake stroke on 3. Right. And then you catch like the second string on the next up. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you get that
I'll get that. I'll work on that.
yeah, you can see what makes it a complicated series of moves.
Yeah.
Because this just has to be automatic. That this hand doesn't even think about what it's doing. So that is definitely developing. But as soon as we throw in like one more curve like this, you can see it's like, oh, that messes up this a little bit.
Okay. Well, that's okay. That's the work for the week here.
Yeah, yeah. One more thing, sort of related to what we just talked about here, is did we work on Angel from Montgomery, John Prine?
I don't remember. Is that? I mean, I mean, I know the song, and maybe we did, but
Yeah. I have a feeling we didn't, because if we did, we would have talked about something else that we talked about today. It does something very similar to. Let me give you an assignment to work on that, but I want to make sure we have the right version. Okay, so this is the original studio version from the record that he's sitting on a haystack in the front. I don't know if you remember this very well or have ever seen that picture. And it's in the key I'd want you to mess around with it in, but it's got an added difficulty of there's no guitar in it. It's all piano in this version. And so, but let me check another version. Let's see this live one. Okay, bad choice. As he got older, he started doing it in lower keys. Oh, let's back up one more spot.
I used to introduce this song as this song's about and she was kind of beside herself.
So this one would make it too easy. So there's a live version of him that is quite old. I mean, he looks like he's about 30-ish here, sitting in front of a river with his guitar, and it looks like he's going to play it, and he's going to play it in the key of the original one, which is kind of the one I'd want you to mess with. So, but explore that a little bit. Angel from Montgomery, and you can listen to Bonnie Raitt's versions too. She does it in a different key, and she does it in a drop D tuning, as a matter of fact. And so it alters a few things. But anyhow.
okay.
Okay, enough about John Prine for now, but that's a good song, another good tune to mess with. So,
Okay. Is there a per se lesson on that one?
I have one, yeah. Yeah, so don't look at the lesson too much yet.
Okay.
Do your best by figuring it out by ear first. Oh,
Okay.
let me see.
Well, just for okay. Okay. Angel from Montgomery. Okay. Last thing I think I mentioned in some text the book that my son gave me for my birthday that I am immensely enjoying. Um, I don't know if you've read or seen this. Play It Loud.
Oh, is that a Led Zeppelin related thing? No.
No. Here, just
Oh, hang on a second. You know what? I just looked at my lesson on it, and you can watch my lesson right away because I've got the music stand. It looks like I used that lesson as an ear training lesson.
I'll do that.
So yeah, so just check it out, and before you look, but don't print up the sheet. But yeah, let me see the book you're talking about.
Hang on one second here.